Sony. Oh, my glasses are fogged up. I was that excited that my glasses are fogged up. Well, I am going to talk about the A6400, but the Sony A9, my God. I can't look. I put out a video the other day talking about how Sony never do updates. And look what they've just done. I can't believe it. They've basically made a new A9. And I can't believe it. I am a little bit disappointed by the A6400, and I'm going to talk to you about that soon. Only because, look, I'm so hanging out for the A7000 and the A7S III. So I will talk to you all about that as well. But, oh my God, that upgrade that they've got for the A9, and I'm going to go through this first. I had it the other way around, but I'm going to talk about this first because I'm so excited about it. It's just basically blown me away. Now what I'll do is I might talk about the A6500 first because I'm so excited about the A9 stuff. And then we'll come back to that and I'll come back to the A9. But boy, even if you've got an A7R3 and the A7 III, you've still got upgrades that you're going to get that is going to be a big improvement. But the A9 update is just out of this world. And I can safely say the people that just picked that up for the $1,000 off that B&H and Amazon had, you've got an absolute bargain. So it's fantastic. So obviously we'll start now with the A6500 only because I've listed that way, the A6400. And we'll talk about that. You're obviously going to see 20,000 videos popping up with all of these influencers that are going to have basically the same thing coming out. So you're going to watch it over and over again. So I thought I'd talk to you about my opinion about it and what I think about it. Overall, it's not bad, but I'll just go to Sony Alpha Rumors just so I can show you what was announced with the camera. Now let me just move this over. So it was as everyone predicted. The A6400 was basically, it's a mix between the A5100 and the A6300 really, if you look at it, of what they've actually announced. It's going to be $900 US. By the way, I am actually drinking tea this morning. It's too early. I got that many beeps as I was lying in bed. People waking me up. I thought I'd better get up and do an announcement about it. I will come to the live chat too, but I just wanted to get to this first. So I actually am drinking tea. Because it's still pretty early here. What is the time? It's what is it? It's just after 9 a.m. in the morning. So it's an interesting release. It's not something that I'm going to buy. It's not something that I'm even interested in, really, with this camera. It is pointing to what we have for the A7000, but I'm going to talk about that in a minute when I talk about the pluses and the negatives about this camera, because there are some pluses, but there also are some big negatives, I believe, as well. But hopefully that will be addressed in the next camera release that comes out. So let's talk about what this camera has anyway. So if you're looking at it, I think it's exactly the same processor. So I think if you're looking at the processor itself, it seems to be the exact same processors as what the A7 III has and the A6500. The reviews I've seen with people panning and stuff, it's still got the jello effect going on. It still has the rolling shutter going on. So that's why it's clearly not an A9 sensor, for instance. I think it's basically, you're going to find it's the same sensor that the other cameras had in there as well. So let's talk about some of the things that are interesting. So it's a 24.2 megapixel. I think it's the same image processor as the other cameras that are out there. It does have an OLED EVF, so there is an EVF there. I was worried about that they might have left that off due to the flip-up screen, but there is an EVF there, which is good. There's also obviously the touchscreen, which is meant to work better. Now, some of the good things, it does have all the gamma profiles on there, and it also has the hybrid log gamma, so you've got that in this camera as well. And that's really good. I don't really understand why they couldn't have given that as an update to the A6500, for instance. But anyway, I know the A6300. But they've also got a shutter speed rated at 200,000 cycles, built-in Wi-Fi, 425 phase detect. Now, they're saying that this is the quickest focusing camera out there, so it obviously has had a big bump in the AF. Like I said, it's $900. It's saying, if you look down here, that it has the world's fastest autofocus. AF acquisition speed is 425 phase detect and contrast detection points. Advanced real-time IAF. New real-time tracking for object tracking. Now, these are really big deal. So, if you're looking at this, so this is a great thing about this camera, and who knows what the A7000 is going to have, but this new tracking, and I'm going to show you because it's the same thing as what they've announced for the A9, and I'll show you sort of some examples with that there. But it looks like it's really good. The tracking seems to really lock on. You just touch on the back of the camera and then it will lock onto that and then focus and not lose that focus looking at the results I've seen so far. So that is really great improvement. So the real good thing are the real-time tracking and the advanced IAF. The animal IAF is coming in a future update, I believe in the summer, the US summer. So it's still a little while away. But at least you've got now that amazing tracking if you want to track someone in video, say, or stills. So that's one great thing. It is still locked to 4K 30, obviously. They're not going to give us 4K 60p. And that's a bit of a bummer, but I'll talk about the downsides in a minute. But they've also put an intervalometer back into the camera as well. About time Sony did that, and that was one thing I discussed when I talked about the Sony firmware upgrades. It was stupid taking that out. So they've added that back in. So it looks like it's really quite an interesting camera itself. I mean, it's nice to have that flip screen, which is the same as the RX100s basically, or the 5100, the old Sony camera. So it's interesting. Like I said, it's not for me though. There's a few glaring flaws for what I've had. Now, admittedly, they're marketing this as the low-end vlogging camera, but I am a little bit worried about now whether, due to the fact of how this works, is Sony now not going to give us a fold-up or an articulating screen in the A7000? Are they going to push us back to this if you need a vlogging camera? That worries me a little bit, and I think that might be the case. I'm hoping not, but I wouldn't now be surprised if they don't give us that option in the A7000, but we have to wait and see. I'm starting to think that they're going to try and push you to use both, like they have with the A9 for certain things, and then you can get the A7 III for other things, or the A7R for other things. I think they might push you down this line if you want the vlogging, like they have with the RX100 5. You know, you can get one with a zoom and then one without. So I think what you might find here is that this is the vlogging camera. This may be their only one that they release as a vlogging camera, and then the other cameras won't have this articulating screen. Or flip-up screen. That's what I think is going to happen. But there's a couple of glaring things about this that I don't like if you're a vlogger, is the fact that a lot of vloggers do put microphones facing on the front of the camera. So this system is not fantastic for that. Now, yes, you can use something like a small rig around it, cage, and put the microphone out the side. But then if you're starting to put that on gimbals, it gets pretty awkward and stuff like that. Also, you're adding extra weight. So I don't think it's ideal. I still think it would have been nicer if Sony could have given us a flip-out screen and got rid of that, you know, completely. So that's a pity. So, you know, if you did want to, say, put a light on there or whatever, you can't do it easily now. You've got to start adding rigs and things like that. So that is a real disappointment for me. The other glaring factor that I know some people are mentioning it and others are saying they don't mind it, but it's got no IBIS. And I think that was a stupid move, because if it's a vlogging camera and you're hand holding it, you need IBIS. Lens stabilization is not enough. Now, the interesting thing here is that if you're using, say, a decent lens on this camera, it's going to be very heavy to handhold, and it's going to be shaky like crazy, you know. And I think that was a real thing they should have put in. And again, I think this is why I think, you know, that they're pushing you to say get two versions. You'll get the A7000 if you want the complete stabilization. If you don't want that, well, then obviously you'll get the A6400. But I think that's a bit of a downer. They should have put IBIS in this camera and maybe charged a little bit more. Would have made that really quite a good release. But so there are a couple of glaring things for me. The IBIS is missing. And I think nowadays you should have IBIS on all of these cameras because it is such an advantage, particularly for shooting video, like what this one's tailored at, which is video. So I think it's a bit of a bummer that they haven't put IBIS on there. The other thing too is it's got the old battery, and I know that if they wanted to keep that size of the camera itself, that there's no way you could fit the new Z battery in there. So that's an issue that you have to deal with. So that's a problem. The other thing for me, which is a problem too, is it's just still got the one card slot, and that again is a problem for me now. I don't really want to be buying cameras anymore with one card slot. So the real glaring things for me about this release is the single card slot. The battery is terrible if you compare it to what the new battery is, and there's no IBIS on that camera at all. And also there's no headphone socket. It's a pity they couldn't fit a headphone socket onto that so that you could at least monitor what your recording is. The good things obviously is the flip up screen if you do want to see yourself when you're vlogging. It does have, they've got rid of the time limit. I believe you can record continuously on this, so it's not limited to the 30-minute time, which is fantastic. So that's a really good thing, and hopefully all of their new cameras are going to have the same thing. So I think that's also a fantastic feature with this as well. That time limit's a real pain, and that's why I haven't got rid of my A7R2, because I've got the crack on there, and it enables me to do the full-on recording without that time limit being involved. Well, I believe they've got rid of this on this camera. It seems to me that it's exactly the same processor as before, so there's no benefit there at all. And like I said, you're still getting the jello and rolling shutter if you're dealing with video. So overall, look, it's okay if this is, I suppose, if you're just coming into the market, this is going to be fine. As their lower end camera, it's probably going to sell reasonably well. Apart from those, obviously, I would probably have bought this if it had IBIS. It's a pity that it doesn't have IBIS, and the battery worries me as well because those batteries are pretty terrible. But it would be a good camera just to lug around and things like that. The focusing stuff on this looks amazing. The new tracking, the advanced IAF and the animal IAF are going to be incredible, and that's one real plus with this as well. So it looks like it's going to be a reasonable release with some glaring flaws that are also there, which I think Sony have done deliberately to push you up to another model, which I suppose is a good business model in a way. And I'm sure we'll have a discussion about this in the chat as well. So that's basically all I wanted to talk about this release until we get something from Sony, which I'm hoping is at WWPI. Which is only, a month or so away, or whatever it is, 2 months. That's probably the point now where we're going to see that. I think this is going to be like the A6300 and the A6500. They possibly could be released fairly close to one another. They will give a time where they can try and sell these before the A7000 comes on sale, in a couple of months. So it's an interesting scenario, but it's certainly not one that I would want to buy for those features that I've said are missing. So yeah, that's an issue for me. I'm still waiting for the 4K 60, which is still not available. That's the thing that I'm really waiting for. So I'm just going to have to keep waiting and see what comes out in the next release. But clearly they have made some big advances in the technology of focus and the AI, which is going to be amazing. And I can't wait to see how that's implemented in the coming cameras and also in my A9. So I'm just going to open it up to chat for a few minutes, because then I'm going to go on to the A9 discussion and the A7iii and the A7II firmware. So let's go and see what people are saying, because I'm curious to know too what people think. If it's many people are saying it's happy. I'm not going to spend too long on this because we've got 20,000 comments. So if you do want to get my attention, guys, put the @David Oastler, because it will make it so I see something. Everyone's just saying hi early. Go Michael. Tox Vision's in here. Barry. Photomix in here. Delta Dave, A6400 is a dud. No time limit on videos on the A6. Yeah, I've discussed that, Mick, and I think that's a really good feature. Jimmy says, what did they do for the A9? I'll talk about that very soon, Jimmy. Langston said, David and Sony engineers working overnight after that hard-hitting video. Well, they have answered some of the firmware stuff that I talked about, Langston, which is fantastic. I've never known Sony to do a release like this, so this is really interesting. And they've basically given us a new A9, and I'll talk about that very, very soon. Sid said, your glasses are fogged up. I know. I was that excited when I saw what was going on. It's also pretty hot here today. A9 update. I know, Michael, it's incredible, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. It is fantastic. Jimmy says they should have great updates for the A7 III. Well, they are giving you better IAF, and I'll talk about that in a minute. You have got some things. They just haven't given you what the A9's got. Venom said the A6400 is what it is. An A6300 that has a screen that flips up, and a lot of people will be just fine with that. Andrew says A7 III and A7 are getting some updates like the A9. They are getting them, but not the same updates, Andrew. Photomix says, Justine already has a video up of the A6400. Yeah, I probably won't watch that one. I like to watch photographers. Sid said, this will be a banner year for all of us. Torben says, don't be disappointed about the A6400. It may not be for you, but I think many vloggers not so focused on slow motion filmmaking and all that will be thrilled with this. And you may be right, Torben. Perhaps I am just being a little bit disappointed because I'm hanging out so much for the A7000 or the A7S III. I don't know which one of those two I'll get. But that could be part of the disappointment. I do think they should have put IBIS in that camera though, Torben. If it's for vloggers who are going to be walking, talking and things like that, it should have had IBIS on that camera. Simon says, hey, from what I'm reading in the small text, it says time-lapse function has a requirement, the latest version of Image Edge Viewer and Play Memories Home desktop applications. Yeah, it must be linked somehow to that software, Simon. I don't know too much about that yet, but it may be that you need to use it through that software. We're going to have to wait and see. I'm okay with that as long as we get some form of time-lapse back in camera. I am quite happy if it involves using Sony software. That doesn't bother me. Andrew says A7 III and A7 are getting AF tracking, animal IF and intervalometer. I think you're only getting the better IAF and the intervalometer. I don't think you're getting the full-on tracking, Andrew. I'll read it in a minute and we'll have a look together. What else have we got? Will it overheat? Who knows? No headphone jack, apparently, yeah. Well, it's the A6300 body, so I'm not surprised that it doesn't have that. Charles said, David, just a thought. I wonder if the linkage of cables from the A6400 screen might work on other cameras like the A7 III. Not sure yet, Charles. The time-lapse isn't in camera. You need software or other software, yeah. So it's probably going to work like that app that I've just done that review on that Cam wrote. That's okay though. I don't mind if you, as long as you can do it. That's really all that I'll be happy. Photomix says I might buy it. Looks nice. There is a mic jack. Yes, there's just not a headphone jack. David, I was waiting for your review, but no IBIS. Yeah, that's the problem. Johnson says to assemble it. I'm not sure what that means. There is a headphone jack. No, I don't think there is foam. There's no headphone jack. Photomix says, I will definitely be renting it for a few videos. I do kind of feel this is a lackluster press conference. There definitely must be something like the A7 still coming. Look, Venom, it's definitely going to be coming. We just don't know when. They have to answer the XT3. This camera doesn't answer the XT3. They have to bring that out. Sony still don't have anything with 4K 60p. It's got to be addressed sooner or later. What else have we got? Michael said the A9 was a beast, but it's about to become a Godzilla. I may not buy it, but the technology for that price isn't bad. Andrew said Sony is saving up bigger announcement for later this year. It's only January, guys. A6300 is just a warm appetizer. Johnson said, no, you just use it and offload the images when you get back to your computer. Yeah, I think that's probably how that's going to work. The animal eye autofocus will be interesting. Yes, it certainly will. Did they improve the AF speed and stuff for the A7 III or just the IAF? I'm going to go through the firmware upgrade in a minute, Jimmy. I'll go through that in the next story. Is this better than the A6500? Well, it depends. It depends. If you need IBIS, no. But I think overall it probably is a better camera than the A6500 due to the fact that you're getting much better focusing. You've got the flip-up screen. The only thing I suppose it's lacking is the IBIS. So if I had to buy one or the other, I'd buy the A6400 than I would with the A6500. That's for sure. I would get the 6400 in a heartbeat over the A6500. I would think the 6500's price will drop. Naturally, look, that's probably got a bigger buffer. But yeah, I think this is a better camera than the A6500, that's for sure. Pro APS-C will come later, yep. DLSB said, I'm so freaking disappointed. Vlogging camera with no IBIS, are you kidding me? This is simply an A6300 with a vlogging screen with a retouched AF that they could do with the A6500 firmware. They probably could have added all of those features into the A6500. Yes, I agree. They probably could have. And then it would just be missing the flip-up screen. If you do vlogging and you do the walking and that sort of stuff, which a lot of the vloggers do, it is a disappointment not having IBIS on there. I'm not going to hold back and say that's true, because it's true. That is a disappointment. Old battery, yes. Norix said, A7 III too expensive. I want something between 1200 and 1500. This was actually a smart move in that respect. Sid said 4K 60 will require a larger body, and that's probably why they're going to go to the A7 series bodies for the A6 for the A7000. I think that's definitely what you're going to find. And again, though, I'm not confident now that there'll be a flip-up screen due to the fact that this has been announced. So that could be a problem. This camera is so good for vloggers. I'm just trying to scroll down because I want to get back onto the other firmware upgrades. Delta Dave said, really looking forward to the A6400. Sincerely, Landfill. That's harsh, Dave. Oh, what else have we got? Torben says, I think it's a given that the A6400 is supposed to go on a gimbal for stabilization. No way this camera could be $900 and have stabilization. Alexander says it's a flop. No one will buy it. I don't think you're right, Alexander. I think it will sell, and I think it'll probably sell fairly well. People have been screaming on the Sony line to get a flip-up screen. So if this is all Sony announced with a flip-up screen, vloggers are still going to buy it. You just want to make sure that you get lenses that are stabilized, like the 18 to 105, for instance, or the 10 to 18 have stabilization in lens stabilization. It does put you off using third-party lenses, though, that don't have the stabilization. So that could be an issue with this camera. I still think it will sell well. Orlando said, David was listening to you. Sony was listening to you. Good firmware update on the way. I don't know if they listen to me, but they listen to someone, so I'm glad. Watch the A7000 be the first prosumer 8K camera on the market. Andrew said, how about make the screen flip up and flip down? I think it does go down as well. Oh, underneath, you mean? Yeah. It might not be possible. Ronald says, isn't this for the consumer market meant to compete with cameras like the Canon 80D? Well, I don't think so. No, I think this is competing with the Canon M50. That's what I believe this is the direct competitor to. And the image quality will kill that M50. The ergonomics, or the way that M50 works, is quite nice. I mean, the flip-out screen is lovely, but the image quality sucks from what I've seen. It's not good at all on the M50. The Canon M50 is not good at all, whereas this will give you nice footage. I mean, it'll give you much better footage than what the M50 is. And I think this is sort of Sony's direct challenge to that. For the XT3, we're going to have to wait for the A7000 to be announced to compare to that. This doesn't beat the XT3, but it certainly kills the M50. Casper said thumbs up for the channel. Thank you so much, Casper. I really appreciate it if you could give me a thumbs up, guys. Just let people know I'm online. Bond Image says this is a great camera for non-professionals. Panda says, g'day Panda, the A6400 not worth it. Chris said, this isn't the camera designed for us old farts that already have cameras. This is for newbies. Yeah, and it probably will sell really well for newbies. You know, kids and stuff that are used to looking at themselves in their smartphone, stuff like that, are going to see this flip-up screen and they're going to buy it straight away. I mean, that's what you have to think about. Sony have been quite smart in that regard. I still believe it will sell like hotcakes. I really do. I'm disappointed because it hasn't given me what I need. I'm just going to have to wait until I can get the A7000. Torben says, even as a second camera for other angles, for interviews and stuff. Venom says the A7000... Where was that? It's just jumped down. I hate it when it does that. I'll just keep going down because we can be here too long. Peter says, have you tried the IF on your A7 III on your dog? Yeah, it doesn't work. It hasn't worked for me. I'm afraid the A7S won't have a flippy screen. I don't think it will either now. Daniel says A6500 is too slow. CPU is 1.8 times slower. Yeah, so you're saying the CPU is the issue, Daniel. Sniper says A6400 may be a good B cam to my A7R3. And that's, yeah, it could be. Sid Vicious said, David, did you see the price drop on the Fuji X-H1 at 1299? Fuji is up to something here with the battery grip. Interesting. Where were we? Tox said, it's an entry-level camera and I think it's awesome for all those makeup YouTubers and other vloggers. It's an excellent addition. Yeah, and I think that's why I said, I think the A6400 will sell well because of that. There's nothing out there, particularly in the Sony line, where you can flip this screen up, and that's fantastic. I'll read a few more and then I want to discuss the firmware updates. Comeback says, screen dim. Well, I haven't mentioned that yet, so hopefully not. I'm hoping that will be addressed. It's terrible if that screen dims. I'm sure it won't. Sniper says, screen should have been flipped on the side or on top and bottom. Yeah, I wish it had been myself. Am I going to have to wait forever for the A7000? When will it be announced? Hoping that it'll be WWPA. WWPI, that's what we're hoping for. On a sunny day, the tilted screen on the A6400 will be completely useless because so dim. Yeah, but you can use the flip-up EVF, and that's why I'm glad that it has the EVF there. Might be a nice wildlife sports cam. IAF on Spider. What else have we got? I'm just trying to see what's down here. Joe says, it's like putting my original A9 on steroids. Just wait till I talk about the A9 update. Oh, boy. Love the A7R3 firmware announcement. Ripley says, Gordon Lang has his first view walking around a car park. And I wonder, too, the interesting thing, too, some of these reviews, I'm not saying I don't trust these reviews, but sometimes you've got to be careful what you believe when you see all the so-called social Instagrammers and stuff like that do reviews because, I'm not saying they're lying, but, they could also have things like stabilization on in post and stuff. I would like to wait until real reviewers get the camera before I sort of make real comments about how these are. You're going to see a million of these videos posted, and that's the thing with this. And they're probably all going to look the same because they're probably all shooting in the same area. I do love it when I start to see the real photographers get their hands on them and videographers, due to the fact that it gives a real more unbiased opinion of what they look like. But from what I've seen, the sensor, if you know how, I'm using the A6300 now. If you know how that sensor looks, I think you're going to find it's going to give you the exact same result. Let me just see, because someone made a donation. I've got to say thank you. Joe says, well worth the price of admission. Thank you so much, Joe. Really appreciate that. And ALI said, are you excited about the A7 III? Oh, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I certainly am. Where are we? Andy says, I think the A6400 was a spot-on filler. I think they need to delay the A7000 since it's not ready. Well, I'm not sure if that's the case. I'm not sure why Sony are holding back on those two cameras. It could be that they're waiting to see what Panasonic does. But what you've got to understand too is when they release cameras, they're usually developed probably 24 months beforehand. I don't know how much they can change. Now, let me give you an example of this. That Canon and Nikon had really, what did they have? Almost 12 months on Sony releasing the A7 III, and both of those cameras still didn't beat the A7 III. That shows you how hard it is to engineer something quickly. It's almost impossible. It takes a long time to engineer something. So I'm probably almost sure that the A7000 and the A7 III are finished. They may be able to do little things in firmware. You can do a lot in firmware, as we're going to discuss in a minute, but the hardware and all these sort of things would be locked in. Like, there's no way they'd now be able to add a flip-up screen on the A7000 if it wasn't designed for it, because we'd be waiting another 12 months for that to come out. So these designs are locked in way, in sort of prior. So it's a problem. I'm not sure why. The only thing I can think of is that they're trying to stage this to make some people get the A7 III. That's sold really well. They're just now only starting to catch up with sales now on the A7 III. And then what you're going to find is that now they've released this camera, the A6400. They'll wait a couple of months, I think, on this now to sell this. In a way, it's really good marketing strategy by Sony. And they will sell, I do think they'll sell a bucket load of these. I'm not going to buy it, and I've been honest with you about that. They will probably sell a bucket load of these. Then the next stage, I think you'll possibly see at WWPI, the Sony A7000 is announced. And then at NAB, we'll probably get the A7S III. That's what I think is going to be the timeline, what's going on. Yes, the A6400 does have log. Yeah, it even has hybrid log gamma as well. So that's fantastic. Dana said, who else is waiting for Camera Conspiracy's take? He did message me yesterday about he was waiting to see it announced. It's going to be funny to see what he said. Photomix said, oh yeah, man, I wish my Nikon Z6 had better IAF. It may come with firmware upgrades over time, though, Photomech. It may. Michael said, Sony said that this isn't replacing the A6500, nor is it the camera Sony was talking about, the A7000, so this is just a camera no one knew about. Yes, it does have log. Bond said the A7000 is going to have A6400 focus with 4K 60. Yep. It is probably going to be an amazing camera. That may be the one I'm interested in. Like I've said to you, I need another video camera. I need another camera for doing the wedding fusion videos, which is hybrid stills and video. So I need another video camera in my arsenal. I do have the A9 and the A7 the A7 III, but I want to get either the A7000 or the A7S III. So I'm still waiting on that to be announced, so I'll know which one to get. Michael just made it. Oh, thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate that. So the problem for me is this doesn't meet my needs, and I would love to get a flip-up screen, but it's going to be really hard now because I'll be disappointed now if Sony don't give us a flip-up screen with the A7000 or some sort of a selfie screen, but I'm not convinced they will now. I'm thinking they may push you back to that if you want to do selfies. It's going to be really interesting to see which way that they go with this. Photomix says, I can already see that one camera guy next video will be A6300, A6400, A6500. Which one should I buy? Andrew said, Photomix, top 10 accessories for A6400. Camera Rambling said, David, the footage is wobbly, mate. Surely that's a massive fail for walking. And this is what I see, Camera Ramblings. Look, there's something I have to say to you here that, yes, we notice that, and we do notice that. And when I put that thing about the A6400 the other day, and I'm talking about from what I want, and I was really disappointed, and that probably came through in the video, but I was really disappointed that it was the A6400 and not the A7000, because I have been waiting so long to have 4K 60p. I'm dying to get 4K 60p for my work. So I was a little bit disappointed, and that probably came through in the video yesterday. It was like, oh no, they've done it to me again. But I still think this will sell like crazy. Now, the people coming in to buy this video probably aren't going to understand what even stabilization is. You know, like I said, you're going to get people just walking into a shop, that kids that are interested in. My granddaughter does vlogging now. I mean, you know, she's really young. But basically, I think they'll go into the shop. They're going to see that this has a flip-up screen, that the camera salesman will lift it up to them, and they'll see their face in the screen. They'll see that they can touch the screen to get focus or take their photo, and that's all they're going to care about. They're not going to care about that it's a little bit wobbly. We care about that because we're more professionals and we're more pixel peepers on what goes on. But the average user out there is not going to give a hoot, basically, that doesn't have IBIS. They're not even going to know what IBIS is. So at that price point, I think this will sell really well, and I really do. It's not for me though, and I won't buy it due to the fact that it hasn't got that IBIS. But you know, that's me. But I think you'll find the average user will purchase that. But it will be jumpy. There's no doubt about it. You can't walk and things like that if you haven't got IBIS. You can't really hold things really stable unless you have IBIS. There's a big difference between lens stabilization and 5-axis stabilization. Like I said, it also cuts out you using non-Sony lenses due to the fact that you're not going to have the image stabilization in the lens, and that's an issue. Let me just go down here. Gerald said, I was out. Just don't say bad things about people, guys. I don't want to. I mean, I said I don't watch those videos, but I'm not going to bag someone. Gerald said, I was out for Gerald here. I watched the Sony live this morning. The Panda said Sony should have sent David Oastler an A6400, not some fangirl. Michael said, David, you're right. It will compete with the M50, and the M50 did very well overseas. Yeah, it has. It sold very well, and I think this will also sell really well. Casper said, Ike, so jelly of my A9. What have we got here? Dr. Exclusive said, hi, David. What happened to my question? What happened to my question? But in how many months do you think we will get the Tamron 70-200? Well, we still haven't heard anything about the 70-200 Tamron yet. I believe, hopefully, it will come this year. Someone said to me the other day, though, that they haven't seen patents of it yet, but we're still hoping. I think there's no doubt that Tamron will release a 70-200 lens, like their 28-75, and also a 16-35mm around that range. If Tamron give us the 70-200G lens, which is what their current lens is, that lens is stunning. I use the Nikon version of that, and that was better than the Nikon 70-200 Mark II. It's a stunning lens, that Tamron 70-200. So I'm sure they will bring one out. It's just a matter of waiting. But we don't know yet. What else have we got? Just before we continue down, I'm dying to get onto the A9 and A7 firmware update. I just want to go through some of these. Daniel said, just made a video. I think A7S3 will have the same flip-up screen. Numbers work, keep in mind. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it will, Daniel, but we'll have to wait and see. I hope it does, but I doubt it. They need us to separate their non-pro models from pro models and hold their pricing. Andrew says, that means you must buy the A6400 to review for us. I'm not going to be buying that camera, Andrew. Camera Rumbling said, Gordon Lang's footage is wobbly, check it out. Yeah, well, it wouldn't surprise me. It's not got IBIS. If anyone shows you, and this is what I'm saying to you, you have to be careful sometimes what you believe with online reviews. If anyone shows you with them hand-holding that and walking around and doing things and it's not wobbly, they've probably put it through stabilization. You can't do it. You need 5-axis. I can hand-hold 5-axis and get fairly stable results. but there's no way I can do it with my A6300. The A6500 is better, but the A6300, I can't do it due to the fact that it only has lens stabilization. Lens stabilization helps, but it's nowhere near as good as 5-axis stabilization. Mike said the time-lapse feature seems to be for movies only. They use the term movie when with no mention of photo time-lapse. Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see, Mike. That's still sort of, we don't have an idea yet. Andrew says A9 II coming in 2025. I'll talk about the A9 in a minute. Let me scroll down to where people have commented with my name. Jason said, a little off topic, but what do you think about Tamron raising the price of the 28 to 75? I don't blame them, Jason. There could be a dollar fluctuation there that's caused that price increase. I think Tamron have been amazed. Everyone has been caught out with how much that lens is sold and how good that lens actually is for the price. So I don't blame them. I really think that's probably a great thing to do, and I'll probably be doing it too if I was them. It's still going to sell like hotcakes. It's still way cheaper than the G-Master version of that lens. It's still probably the best value zoom lens out there. So yeah, I don't blame Tamron for putting that lens up. Daniel said, I'll bet you some nice Belgian beers that the A7 III will have some flip-up screen numbers work. Keep in mind the 3.2 screen versus the 16.9. We'll see, Daniel. Panda says that 70 to 200 will come up Photo Kina. Gerald says Sony should thank you for hitting them about the firmware updates. Mixer said flip out, not up. Oh, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. 87 likes, 2 dislikes. I always get dislikes. It doesn't matter what I post. I always get dislikes. Haters are always out there. I don't think I've ever disliked a video in my life, which is quite funny. Snap Click says, what are you using for the video mic? I'm using the... what is it? I can't remember. It's the Sennheiser. I can't remember the model number, though. It's a Sennheiser mic. I'll show you which one it is. Let me just see if I can bring this up. And just don't worry about the white balance because I haven't corrected it. Oh, there you go. It's not bad. So I'm using this. Oh, let me come from that side. So that was the mic I'm using. So it's just on a boom arm above me. It's a Sennheiser. Tyler says, great point. They have an incentive to keep their relation with Sony on good terms so they continue to be granted access for future videos. Elfork said, no image stabilizer, no deal. It's a problem if you need it. I suppose if you're not happy with that, though, you've got the option of going up to the A6500. It's still there. Sony has released another A9 firmware during this live. Oh, I'll have to have a look in a minute. I'm going to check out some of that information in a minute. Torben says, actually, I think the dislikes are more meant as a joke by now. Maybe, Torben. I don't know. Jake says, do you think they should have named the A6400 the A5200 to keep within the consumer range models? No, I think it's probably right because it's definitely a better camera than I think it's a better camera than the A6500. So it probably could have been an A600 really, apart from the IBIS is taken out. If you look at everything else that camera has on board, way better focus than what the other two cameras have. I think you've got the flip-up screen. The only thing missing that the A6500 will beat it is probably the buffer and the IBIS. Now, there are two things there, but I think overall, if I had to choose one of those cameras, I'd get the A6400 over the A6500 any day, and because I think it's a much better camera. Venom says the dislikes are usually actually gone for a few videos, but they come back consistently, usually 2 to 4 people, maybe the same guys. Yeah, they probably are. Jealousy. Snapclick says, thank you and sorry for being OT. Getting into audio, looking at Sennheiser. Yep, I love this that microphone. Flora says, hey David, if Sony doesn't take care of us pro users, Nikon is pulling from one side and Canon from the other, and Panasonic may surprise. I do think we're going to hear from Sony. They have admitted that there's something more on the horizon. We know the A7S3 is coming, and I'm sure the A7000 is going to come out. They have to answer the XT3, so it's just a matter of waiting for that. Last couple of questions before we go into the A9 upgrades. Mitch said, anyone else with the A9 actually jumping for joy? Yes, I am. That's for sure. Daniel said it will be the A6000 for a few years. James said, David, tell us about the firmware updates. Okay, let me just put in here firmware. All right, let's discuss what's happened. Now, I had a really big whinge, really, about Sony not doing firmware upgrades. And I don't think they have really done good firmware upgrades to this point. And it was a real disappointment because if you can go back and you'll see that video that I put up, and I actually started to show things that, like, say, Panasonic have added. And I know because I had the GH5 for a while. And they added some amazing things, like they upped the bit rate on the cameras. They did things like that. They added other log things, although the log, I think, on the Panasonic you had to pay for at the time. But they did continuously change the focus. They were adding things all the time. If you look at the XT3 or Fuji cameras, they've been adding firmware upgrades to, say, the XT1, and the firmware upgrades have been really big. In fact, it almost made it like a new camera for those users, and I was a bit annoyed that Sony never seemed to give us anything other than this. Look, they did give us some improvements, like with focusing in the fact that you could use the full AFC and things like that, but we didn't get really anything major from Sony. It was always updates that you didn't really know what was going on. They usually give this script that says updates and whatever, but we never really got anything substantial. So I put out a whole video discussing that I was disappointed in the fact that you know, before you had cameras that they just gave no love to, and they would never give upgrades to make anything new come about, and they never looked after their users really in that regard. And I don't think it affects Sony in one way at all, because people will still buy a new camera if they give upgrades and make that camera much better, because the new cameras are obviously still going to have like a newer processor, it'll be faster, there'll be things there all the time. So it was disappointing how Sony never gave us upgrades. So that was what that real whinge was about, and I was trying to say to Sony, come on Sony, look after your users like Panasonic do, like Nikon just did with their massive RAW video upgrades and the focusing modes improvement. And I said, Sony, come on, lift your game, you've got to look after your users. We spend a lot of money, you should be looking after us. And I didn't expect this at all. This blew me away, and this is why I was like this at the start. Because what they've added to the A9 in particular is incredible. Now, we are going to get some things for the A7 III and the A7R, but let's look anyway at this upgrade. Because, let me just move this over. So they have announced this major upgrade for the A9 camera. And I'll go through this first and then we'll look at the A7 III upgrades. But it's pretty incredible what they've done and what they've given us. Let me just move this over. If you look at what they've added, now there's going to be 2 versions of this firmware. It's still got to move over. Actually, I'll do it here. So there's going to be 2 versions of this firmware. I've got to move it over more. I don't want my face in it. There's going to be a version 5 and a version 6. I think the A7 III and the A7R3 are going to have just 1 version upgrade. That they haven't listed it down as being 2. But let's look at some of the things that they've added. It's incredible. Now, I think there's a whole thing, and I'll put this in the description box down below so you can read this if you want to, but I wanted to sort of take you through a little graphical thing that Sony Alpha Universe have put up about this. But it's incredible. So I'm not going to go through all this because it'll bore you to death. But basically, there's a version 6. I want to mention that because it's not mentioned in this other dialog box that I'm going to be showing up. Version 6 firmware for the A9 camera will add animal IAF. So we are going to get animal IAF in version 6, and that's scheduled in summer. The original version 5 firmware is going to be available in March. Now, the interesting thing is, and I'm going to go through these specs in a minute, what they're saying, but they actually are giving us almost a new camera. I can't believe this. I really cannot believe what they've given us. It's blown me away because these are incredible features. These features would have made me purchase, say, an A9 II, and I probably will get the A9 II when it comes out. But these features are basically given us what you'd expect an A9 II to have. Now, I still believe we'll probably get an A9 II, but it's probably going to be next year. So these upgrades are going to keep us going for this year. And I did say all along that I believe we'd get a new A9 for the Olympics next year, 2020. And I think that's probably still the case. I don't think we're going to see an A9 this year now. I think this will tide us over until the start of next year where we'll get one ready for the Olympics. But before we go to the A9 one, just while I've got the Sony, I'll go through the A7R3 and the A7 III ones here because then I'll show you what they're adding on the A9. So Sony A7R3 and the Sony A7 III are both going to receive the real-time IAF. Now that real-time IAF seems to be really sticky compared to the previous version of the firmware. It really locks on to the eye. Now the great part about this is you no longer have to use an extra button to get the IAF to focus or keep locking onto the eye. A half a button press on your shutter release will give you the focus. So you don't have to sort of hold, like if you look at it now, on my A9 for instance, I'll press the AF on button to focus because I've got it on back button focus, and then I use the AEL button there to give me IAF. So I've sort of got to hold both of those two buttons down to get focus. And it is harder to do that. Well, the new way of doing it is it will be locked into the one focusing mode. So all you have to do is press focus and it will automatically grab that IAF, and it seems to be really sticky. So boy, have they improved that eye autofocus. I mean, Sony before had way better eye autofocus than anything in the marketplace. And this has taken it to another level. It really has. And I can't wait to get it on my A7 III. The other thing that they're saying here is you'll also get real-time IAF for animals. So you're going to get the IAF, which is the stickier one where you just handheld and it will be there. You'll also have IAF as well. Now, that seems to be the amount of... and you're also going to get the intervalometer, which it's saying down here. Cameras will also receive interval recording functionality that will allow simple creation of time-lapse movies. The new feature can be set anywhere between 1 and 60 seconds, with a total shot from 1 to 199. AE tracking sensitivity can also be adjusted to high, medium, or low during interval recording. So that's sort of it for the A7 III and the A7R3. So you are getting much better IAF, and you're also getting animal IAF. That's interesting because I did believe when the original rumors were out there about IAF, when Sony showed it, I did say, and you can check back, I did actually say that I thought that the IAF would only be available for the A9. I thought that they would only add it to that camera and they wouldn't give it to any camera below. So I'm really happy as an A7 III user that I'm going to get the better IAF and also the animal IAF, because it's great if you're shooting pets and stuff like that. So it is a great feature, but it's nothing compared to what the A9 has. So let's come back to here, because I want to show you a couple of things about this. Now, this real-time tracking looks incredible. Let me just move this over. This real-time tracking that Sony have added onto the A9 looks unbelievable. Let me just show you this tracking. Now, this works in stills and in video. Like, I can't tell you how excited I am about this. I've said to you guys all along that I believe the A9 is the best video camera that I've ever used. Go back and check the video I just did of all the models that I shot in lavender fields. all shot with the A9. That camera is stunning. It's by far the best focusing video camera that I've got. I use it on the gimbal all the time. And I hate it when I do fusion weddings. This is why I'm saying I'm desperate for another video camera, because I hate it when I get fusion videos, because I lose the A9 for stills, because it's so good in video that I use the A9 for video on the day, and then I'll use the A7 III for my stills. But the video autofocus is already incredible, but what they're adding to this in video particularly, it's blown my mind. So let's have a look. I'll just show you this quickly. So you just touch the screen basically, and then it will follow. You can see even there it's grabbing IAF as it's moving. Now, everything I've seen about this seems to track in real time and locks on like it's nuts. You can see there it was recording and it looks incredible. I'll put these links down below. Just let me come to 12, what was it, 1559. You can also see here too that they've added new color as well. I think this is talking about how it's doing the real-time tracking. But they've also improved the color of the JPEGs, I believe, as well, for things like skin tone, smoothing in skies and stuff like that. I just want to stop this in a second because I'll take you through everything that they've added, because there's a dual screen here coming up in a second. So, now let me just pause this. So let's have a look. This is the A9. This is nuts. Let me just reduce this down so you can see the whole screen. It really is insane what they've added here. I just can't believe it. Let me move me so I'm not in the way of the thing. All right, so let me just update this. All right, so let's have a look what they've added. So on the A9, they've added real-time tracking, and I just showed you how that works a second ago. It looks like it's amazing. The other thing too is it's also for movies, and this is what's blown me away. At the moment, the lock-on tracking was nowhere near good. Lock-on AF was nowhere near as good in video as it went back to some old archaic way of tracking the lock-on AF when you were doing in video. This looks like it's completely a game changer in that regard, and it looks like it's going to be incredible. You've got real-time IAF by half pressing the shutter button from AFC, right, left eye tracking, and I'll show you that in a minute because you can actually change, and this is what I've always missed, because sometimes when you're looking at your IAF, it can sometimes grab the wrong eye, you know, and I would like to switch that sometimes. And you've got the ability now, like on the Nikon, you can do this as well. You can change between grabbing the left eye or the right eye. Now, you can do it manually or you can do it automatically. And again, this is just while you're pressing the shutter button. It's going to completely change the way that we all shoot with the A9 and the A7 III and the A7R III. So that's fantastic. I can't wait to be able to have that feature. Expanded aperture range for phase detection AF in stills. This is one of the big advantages with the A9. Just let me see, because someone just gave a donation. Rickat, thank you so much, Rickat. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. He just gave a donation down here. I'll just show it so you can see. What were we just talking about? Let me come back to here. Oh, yeah. Autofocus. Now, this can be a real interesting thing, because sometimes the A9 is the only camera that can give you the ability, well, the only Sony one, that will give you the ability to use phase detection for f11. The A7 III and the A7R III, I think it's f8 where it knocks out, or f9. I can't remember. It's one of the other. This can be a real advantage. Now, you might say, well, why would you ever want to use apertures that range? And I use it in portraiture, for instance. If you're trying to overpower the sun, for instance, and you want to use flash to overpower that sun, there are occasions when I will have to go up above f9 to get a full balanced image of overpowering the sun if you're trying to shoot into a sunset or something like that. Even in studio, sometimes it's an advantage to be able to shoot over f8 or f9. So with this, you can actually use phase detection autofocus up to f16 now. So they've taken it from f11 up to f16. That is a real big deal, and it's something that I use all the time. When I originally got the Sony, I was confused because I couldn't work out why when I went over f9, the focus would start to rock in and out. and it was doing this, and you may have seen this. You might have seen it actually sort of shooting in and out like this, and it was horrible. And I thought my camera's faulty. Later on, it was pointed out to me that was due to the fact that the phase detection stops at F8, F9. So if I went up to F10, it was just using contrast detection, and it has to use that ability to go in and out. So having this ability to go up to F16 is brilliant. And again, that's going to help people that are doing things like this, overpowering the sun, all that sort of stuff. So it's a great feature that we've got on there. What else have we got? Advanced AF speed and stability for movies. I've just showed you that. Touch tracking, so you're going to be able to just touch on the back of the screen and track, and I think that will be available hopefully in the A7 III as well. No, it's not. Sorry, you've only got the IAF. The touch tracking is only available on the A9. You've got touchpad, focus area circulation. I'm not even sure what that means. AF area and ISO display limit. Shooting image quality. They're saying here interval shooting. This is what you're going to get on the A7 III and the A7R III. Enhanced stability of white balance and enhanced tonal gradation. What they're saying here is that you're going to get better gradients in the sky, things like that, and better skin colours. So they've probably improved the colour science again on the A9. I have found that the colour science of the A7 III is a fraction better than the A9. A fraction, it's not much, but it is a fraction better, and you're probably going to find now that the A9 is going to push ahead again. So they're constantly changing the colour science. And you might also find that the colour science on the a6400 will also hopefully be better as well. So that's another consideration you have to keep in mind there too. So if you do shoot JPEG, and the JPEGs are starting to get really good now, I often shoot RAW on one card and JPEG on the other. And unless the image has to have editing, I'll often use the JPEG because they do look so good now. And the A9 is obviously going to be even better. So I'm really excited about trying that out. What else have we got here? You've got relay recording on dual media slots. So they've improved the media slots that you can do separate things with all the media slots there. Let me just hide this. You've got a simplified white balance setting, so I'm not sure what they've done there yet, but they've simplified it. That you can rate now in the A9. Before, I don't know why they took that out, seeing it's meant to be a sports camera. You can now rate in camera, which is fantastic. Grouping display for continuously shot images. You've got a 1:1 aspect ratio. Now, this is fantastic, particularly for people... I know, look, you could crop it in post, but it's fantastic if you're shooting for Instagram. To be able to shoot in a 1:1 aspect ratio is a big deal. And I think that's a great feature to have. JPEG image quality setting for RAW and JPEG mode. Blue color added to peaking, and that's a great feature too if you are doing manual. I still don't think they've changed the focus color though, so that's still not done. I don't know why. Blue color added to focus peaking, which is cool in case, because sometimes your colors match background colors, and it's nice to be able to change those colors. Monitor off, selectable via display button. Again, that's fantastic. You can just turn the monitor off. Simultaneous proxy movie recording. So if you're doing video stuff, you can do proxy movie recording. New initial magnification for movie focus magnifier. AV-TV rotating settings, so you can obviously change those settings. Detail face detection settings. Menu added to assignable custom functions. I'm going to show you some of these in a second. Improved menu tab. This looks really good actually from what I've seen there as well. I believe you can also set your camera so that as soon as you hit on the menu, you can have your favorites show up straight away first up, so you can determine what you want to show up first up. And these are really great things that are starting to show there. Default display of my menu, last cursor position improvement, improved Wi-Fi control, and many others. Now let me just bring you back to this though, because I wanted to show you a couple of things over here. Let me just move myself out of the way. Where were we? It was here. Because I wanted to show you a couple of other things that were mentioned in here a little bit later on. What was it? 1609, I think. Now, like I said, I'll put the link down for this below. Now, you can see the IAF. This is how you determine whether you want left, auto, or right. So you can pick from here and have your eye selected through that setting as well. Your custom keys are great. just check out this. Let me just go back. This is the eye where you can determine your IAF. So you can have it auto, you can have right or left, and I believe you're probably going to be able to switch that on the fly. I wanted to show you this custom setting as well. So if you go to custom key settings, now they've obviously improved the menus. Everyone always whinges about Sony menus. So these have been improved as well. So now what you see, and this is a fantastic idea, and this will really help people that don't know what buttons mean and things like that. So what it does, when you click on it, it shows you which button it is, and then you just click on that to change your settings. These are fantastic. I mean, this is really helpful, because sometimes I do go in there and I forget what I've got on each custom button. So to be able to go into this and then have that show up and then change those settings immediately is brilliant, and it really is fantastic. And I would love the other camera, the A7 III, to have this, but it looks like it's only going to be on the A9. This probably will be, it may be on the A6300 as well, I'm not sure. A6400, I mean. This probably will be the new menu system from now on though, but that looks fantastic. Let me just keep going. You can see here, oops, if I come back, I've got to stop it in time. You can see here too that, and like I said, I'll put the link for this down below so you can have a look. Oh, it's so fast. I just wanted to show you this custom key setting. You can see here too that that's the second one, so you can see your buttons showing up and it tells you what you've got on. So all you literally have to do is click onto that and then you'll be able to select the thing that works on that setting. It's again, they're your top keys that you can see through here as well. And it will show you that was the lens mount as well. Let me just keep going, 16.0, because it also shows, I think, I'm just trying to see if it shows anything else. This is where he's showing the tracking and he's discussing how that you can lock on using that focus. This guy's a sports photographer apparently, and he actually shows how he can lock on the object and it doesn't lose the thing. Even when he goes behind or in front or whatever, it will lock on and track that person like his face. It's incredible. Like when you watch this demonstration, it's unbelievable how it works. And he showed it actually working from just touching on the screen at the back, and it will maintain focus and it doesn't get tricked by the movement and things like that. And this was working in video and in stills, and it just looks awesome. I mean, I really can't tell you how exciting this is for the A9 users out there. I mean, the A7 III and the A7R III have missed out a little bit, but at least you're getting the IAF, which I didn't think we'd get, and we're getting the better IAF. We're getting the animal IAF, I mean. But the A9 has taken it to a new level. It really is nuts what they've given us. I cannot believe, I would have paid for this. I would have paid $200-300 for those features. To be able to have that video autofocus alone, for me personally, is unbelievable. I can't wait for that. Like I've said to you all along, it's strange now that they've kept the picture profiles off the A9 though, because, but then again, I can probably understand, because this camera, if you'd had picture profiles on the A9 now, would have been the ultimate camera. I would have probably gone out and bought another one. It's incredible. Like I've said, I do believe it's the best video camera Sony have got. And now it's just taken it to a complete another level. Nothing will touch the A9 now. Nothing at all. So, I mean, really, if you were thinking about getting one, probably now is the perfect time that you could get one. It's a pity that $1,000 has just disappeared, though. I don't think you can get that anymore. That came off. But I'm going to open it up to chat, because I'd love to know what you all think about those firmware upgrades. And then it's time for me to get a coffee, I think. Where did we start from? Let me come back here. Camera Rambling said, glad Sony finally is giving updates. I think we've been a little spoiled in some ways. Love the channel. Thanks so much, mate. Alan says, come on, David, move on to the A7 III update. I did. Johnson said, if I had $1 for every person on here that thinks his A6400 is a replacement for the A6500, I think it's the... I'm not sure what that means. Tox said, if Sony added picture profiles via firmware update for the A9, I know. But you know what, Tox? I don't use it. If you're worried about that, check out my videos and you'll see how good the A9 is. Check out the last video that I did. Let me just see, and I won't show you now because it's gorgeous. The video itself is just stunning. And I'm so happy with how that looks. Let me just go to YouTube and I'll show you just quickly. Let me just go to my channel. Let me switch over here. Now you can go back and you can check this one out because, like I said, this was all shot with the A9. No picture profiles. This was standard, so I did everything on here standard. It was on a gimbal, obviously, but I mean, to get the true quality, you'll need to have a look at this, not through this now because it's being uploaded. But please check it out because don't think that the A9 cannot produce stunning video. It is really gorgeous. The video on this is stunning. The video focus is stunning. Now to have this taken to a new level and have it where I can use this tracking in the autofocus is just going to be, I'm going to be blown away. I just can't wait. I really cannot wait. So just check it out. But like I said, guys, you do not need, I can understand if you want ultimate dynamic range that you're thinking you want logs, but I never use them. Even on my A7 III, I don't use them. I use the standard profile on everything, and I adore that look. I like the look of it. Little processing has to be done. Obviously, if you had log here, I suppose you might get a bit more dynamic range, but the dress still has detailing. So, you know, I think it's important that you understand how good the A9 is, and you don't need to have NDs sometimes to get, picture profiles to get beautiful footage. I mean, I do think this is lovely, but have a look at that full video if you want to check how that is. But, you know, it's gorgeous, and I really do like how that looks. That was all shot with a standard profile, and I just edited it in Final Cut. I always just put, this is the exact combo I'm using. So I'm using, I've used the 55mm, I've got the ProMaster ND on there. Oops, I think I've just switched it. Yeah, I've got the ProMaster ND on there, and I'm using the A9 obviously, and it's on a gimbal. It's stunning. I just love that look. So don't believe you can't get great video. Now this new update in the firmware is taking this video to another level because the autofocus is going to be nuts. Let's have a look. Daniel says, if people think this is the only thing Sony do, they are crazy. This is the new A6000 for a while. What else have we got? SnapClick says, Mitch, I went nuts watching the press conference live and unexpected. Iron Brown, g'day mate, said, you couldn't wait for me to get home from work. Everyone kept waking me up. Tony, they were asking me, kept messaging me in bed. Philip says, how come you guys never talk about the A7R2 firmware upgrades? There aren't any. Well, we haven't really had many. There was some, but yeah, we haven't had much. Oreo said, I'm glad that they have animal IAF. Now I can finally take portraits of my mother-in-law. Oreo, oh boy, you better hope she doesn't look at this. Loving the XT3 I have, but still prefer my A7R3. Daniel says, Oreo, hee, what is her email? Oh, I love that, honestly. Panda says, I finally tested the new RX150 macro today for a short time, and wow, it's amazing, everyone. That's good. Don said, hi, David. Do you know if there will be a firmware update on the A7R3, possibly a colour? Well, I'm not sure why Sony don't address that, Don. I really don't. I'm not going to complain today, though, about firmware upgrades because I think what they've just given me is unbelievable. I'm still happy with the A7 III getting the animal IAF. I didn't think we'd ever get that. And the IAF features alone are going to be incredible. Oreo, you're going to hell for that comment. I love it. Adding the mic will block the screen, so forget about vlogging. Megaman said, I bought the Sony accepting that I will likely get zero features from firmware updates. That said, I'm really glad they appear to be changing. And you know what? This is what I'm saying. Competition is good for us guys, because competition makes companies do things. And this is, you know, it's not, we're all not blind. The reason why Sony are probably doing this now. We've got Nikon there in full frame. We've got Canon there in full frame. Panasonic is starting to do it as well. So good on Sony for finally thinking, well, we better start looking after the users. Panda said, Sony, damn right, Sony needs to give more if they want to take more. Daniel says, Mark Geller and some of us, A7iii, A7R, are preparing a list for Mark Geller. We'll have a meeting with Sony software team in Japan. Delta Dave said, 416 watching now, maybe this is your new time slot. Joey says, I'm glad I switched to Sony from Nikon 7 months ago. Isn't it ironic that Nikon is still working on the IAF and yet Sony had better occurring already? Oh, Sony, yeah. The Sony IAF is still the best IAF even now. This is even before the updates. Sony IAF is unmatched. There's nothing can touch Sony IAF. And this is just going to take it to a complete new level. We're probably 2 years, other companies are probably 2 years away from being where Sony is going to be. Froppel said animal focus is a must. Oh no, I can't wait for it because I love shooting my dog Ziggy. I'd love to get his face and his eyes perfectly in focus. Tox said, do you think Sony will remove the 29-minute recording limit? Probably not. I think you may have to get a new camera for that. It looks like it's taken out of the a6400. I think the A9 II and the A7 III and the A7000 will probably have that. I think that's going to be a new camera, though, Tox. I think that's what's going to happen. Johnson City said, you put 100 to 400 GM or 400 GM on that 6400 and it'll take out 85% of Nikon sports setups at the game, guaranteed. Not bad for an entry-level consumer camera. Yeah, the tracking is going to be incredible. I agree with you. The tracking for that sort of stuff is going to be unbelievable. Michael said, this firmware update is Sony competing and making it clear. They know it's now they know it's competition and they have to make it clear they have their eye on everything. Yep, exactly, Michael. Aaron said, I'm very happy for the eye autofocus, so am I. James said, David, do you think Sony was planning firmware upgrades like these, or has the Nikon Canon in the market changed the way Sony thinks? We don't know. I mean, look, we just don't know, but Sony have never done this before. My feeling is they've probably changed their thinking and given us more than what they would have. That's probably what I think, but we don't know. I just thank Sony that they've done it. Ian DeBrown said, Michael Pierce, also they have said that 100K on A9 on the shelf and we need to get them sold. You got 100K, oh, so you're saying they've got 100,000 of them on the shelves? Well, they probably will sell them now, that's for sure. SnackClick said, only downside to the new IF is we are going to have to figure out what to program the lens buttons now. Yeah, I know. Mega says, Sony is listening to their customers and paying attention to what their competition is doing, and that's smart business. Totally agree. What else have we got? Andrew said, David OCC told you. Can't remember what that was about, Andrew. What else have we got? The new firmware updates for Sony a6300 is possible. Well, it probably is possible, but I don't think we're going to get it. Aaron says, I'm so glad watching your videos. They only listen to you. Thanks, David. Yeah, I'm glad Sony listens to your videos. Yeah, right, Aaron. What happened to that one camera guy? Well, I don't know what's happened to them. They haven't posted anything for ages. I would say Jason is probably at this Sony Alpha event. No doubt. Probably Jason's there. Whether that one camera guy's there as well. But yeah, we haven't seen them since before Christmas, so I don't know what's happened to them. Perhaps they'll be back next week. What else have we got? The Panda says he is a teacher, not a full-time YouTuber. Him and Danny were taking a break, Casper. I commented on their video earlier today that it was about time to start back. Gerald said, but Nikon folks have always underestimated Sony and have been caught out. Nikon folks can't accept that Sony has come to play for the top. It's not your father's cameras market. Well, I think Nikon have done pretty good in their release, Gerald. I mean, they've actually done a lot better than what Canon have done for a first release. And they'll only get better in the coming cameras that are out there. Sounds like you need a second A9. Well, I'm going to wait and see, obviously, what the A7S3 gives me and the A7000. I have been tempted sometimes to buy a second A9 though, but I'm happy at the moment with my A7 III and the A9, but I do need 4K 60p. That's why I haven't bought another A9. Jared says, will the active track be coming to the A7R3? No way. I don't think that's going to happen. It's only going to be announced for the A9. You'll have to wait for the A7R4 to get that, Jared. If you want that tracking, you're going to have to get the A9. I've mentioned to you guys all along that the A9 is still, even now, without these updates, the A9 is still my favourite camera. I think a lot of people underestimate how good the A9 is. 1/32,000th of a second shutter speed. Perfect silent shutter in the fact that you don't get rolling shutter with that camera. The better focus, it is better than the A7 III. It's unbelievable in that regard. There's still nothing like that sensor in any camera that's out there. It's the only sensor of its type like that out there. Now with these new updates, it's taking it to another level. I really believe now that this blows any other camera out of the water completely. I mean, it just destroys the Nikon D4S or the D5 or 6, whatever. I mean, I can't even see the D6 matching this. It's going to be incredible what this camera is going to give us with those features that have just been added. It really is amazing. There's nothing that even gets used on that. There's nothing that really has to move on that camera. Remember, you don't have to shoot in mechanical unless you're shooting with flash. So therefore, there's nothing really even being moved on that camera. It's all electronic. In theory, it should last forever or last an incredible long time because there's no shutter being used in that regard. It's incredible. Like I said, it's got everything I need apart from 4K 60p. If that camera had 4K 60p, and unbelievable if it had a flip-out screen, it would have everything that I would possibly ever need. Michael said, at this point, I'm getting another A9 and the price has dropped a bit, so it's a go 100%. I know it really has taken the A9 to another level, Michael. I agree with you. That tracking alone, and it's the only one that you're going to have for video tracking like that. Nothing else has the ability to track a moving object. It's very archaic, Sony's lock-on AF at the moment. This is a game changer if you're dealing with video autofocus for tracking subjects. It really has taken it to a complete new level. I agree with you. Pandahead said, hit that sexy like button. What else have we got? A9S will be spectacular. Who knows? Casper said, thumbs up for David. Thank you, Casper. Last few questions before we go. Also says, does the A9 have picture profiles? No, it doesn't, but I don't use them. I use the standard and it's perfect. As long as you expose correctly, there's enough leeway for me in the files to do whatever I need. And I just use an ND and expose correctly. I don't understand the numbering from 6400. Is the 6500 spec'd out? Well, it's meant to be better because it has the IBIS. That's the only real difference. And a better buffer. I still believe the A6400 is a better camera than the A6500, though. If I had to buy one or the other, that's the one I'd get. Daniel said, F16. I know. How amazing is that, Daniel? Using PDAF at F16 is unbelievable. So I was hoping 4K 60. Yeah, well, that's going to come in later cameras. Daniel said, also means good news for the TC 1.4. Yes, exactly. That's one of the issues with, say, using an A7 III or an A7R. As soon as you use the adapters on it, you're in trouble. And therefore, it's great being able to have over F11 with using adapters. It really is. Casper said, G-Master, G-Master. Oh, I love it. You're still linked... you're still somewhere. I just saw a message there with the A6500. You're still linked to 1/4000th of a second, which is a pity they didn't go to 1/8000th or something. And you're still limited to 1/60th of a second flash sync speed. Camera Rambling said, I'm checking out the used price of the A9, 2,300. Not bad for a new camera. Yep, exactly. Daniel said, if A6400 could have the new tracking mode, so can the A7 Mark III and the A7R3. If they do, it depends on pressure. Yeah, I don't think they're going to do it, Daniel. I really don't believe you'll get that. I think you're going to have to get the A7R4 for that. What else have we got? Brad said, as an A7R2 owner, I'm disappointed I'm not getting any firmware upgrades. There may be reasons particularly why the A7R2 doesn't get it, though. The processor probably couldn't do that, though. You might be limited on hardware on that one, Rad. So that could be the issue with that one. What else have we got? Scott said, just here, David, apparently the screen doesn't dim. That's fantastic. That's great news. I wouldn't have expected it to. Ricky said, I get the bulletproof coffee to celebrate for... Oh, I get a bulletproof coffee to celebrate for you. Michael said, the updates that Sony is able to do is because of the new processor in the A9. It's still, like I said, still the most advanced processor, exactly. And now Sony is putting it in their new cameras. It's most likely going to be able to work... it's most likely not going to be able to work in older cameras. Exactly, and it probably is. That's the issue, yeah. Remember, that A9 processor is incredibly advanced for its time. Way advanced for its time. MBW said, lock-on AF will definitely help the A9 sell more. Yep, it does have lock-on, but it's bad. It's like the same version that the A7 III has. It's a terrible implementation. You don't get what you get for stills, but this has taken it to a complete new level. And like I said, if you're thinking about an A9 now, I would jump at it because it's taken it to a... It's like you're getting an A9 II, basically. That's what it's like. MBW said Canon and Nikon still run 80 to 90% of sports and wildlife photography, even with the A9 being a considerably better camera. That will change, though. It will change. Will the A7 II get any updates? Probably not. You might get lens updates or something like that. Nikon and Canon did so badly with mirrorless that Sony only needed a half-hearted attempt at a camera to stay ahead. Peter says, okay, I'm freezing my hands off for David. Sony has another event scheduled already. I was interesting. Well, the next thing I think that will happen is you'll see it at WWPI. Gerald said, I think it has more to do with the price that kept Sony folks from the A9. Not how awesome it is. Now more reason to save and get it. And you've got to think too that the price has dropped considerably compared to when that was originally out. So that's something else you've got to consider. I think now, particularly with what Sony have offered with the A9, that camera is really reasonably priced. I mean, very reasonably priced. So if you can afford it, I would jump on and get it. I don't think you're going to see an A9 this year, so you're going to get at least 12 months out of that camera before an A9 II comes out. And even then, it's still going to be an outstanding camera for a number of years ahead. So if you were thinking about getting one, I would definitely get one. Still my favourite camera. Difference between the A6400 and the A6500, really just IBIS and a bigger buffer. That's probably it. But the A6400 has better focus. It probably is much better in a lot of things. I mean, it's got a hybrid log gamma, I think, is on the A6500. But I think just for the focus alone, it's a much better camera. You're going to get the time-lapse feature built in, stuff like that. The A6400 is a better camera. What else have we got? Daniel said A7 III and A6300 are old software. They changed the OS hard split. Yeah, that's a problem. They're getting too old, those cameras now. Panda said, boo, Sony not updating their older cameras. Torben says, can you imagine wildlife shooters getting that real-time tracking? I think Tony Northrup is going to explode. So how much cheaper should the A6500 be now? Well, it should be well underneath the A6400, I believe. What are the drawbacks of the A9? I don't think there are any. I know that's something to say, but I cannot fault that camera. Look, it's got an amazing battery. The focus is incredible. If you're talking about the new updates particularly, I don't think you can fault it. The only thing where I could say what I need as an extra is the 4K 60p. That's basically it. It's got everything. I'm being honest when I say that to you, that camera rumblings. I don't believe there are drawbacks on that camera. I really don't. It's my favorite camera to use. You've got the extra controls on the top of the camera that you need. I really don't. The only thing I could say is a drawback, yes, is that, and I'm not sure whether this new update has fixed that, you can't look through the viewfinder and use your finger on the back screen for focus. That's probably the only thing where I would say the A9 has an issue as compared to the A7R3 and the A7 III. You can't do that at the same time. Whether that new update has fixed that, I don't know. Should I sell my A7 III and get the i9? Well, it's up to you, Tim, whether you want to do that or not. I would, if I only had one camera, I would have the A9. But you lose a lot selling an A7 III and going up to an A9. Only you could make that decision. But if you want the ultimate tracking, yes. If you've got the money to do it, yes. A6400 lacks topside C buttons. Just hope for an A7000, it will come. Does it shoot down 5K to 4K? I believe it will be the same as the well, yeah, we'll have to wait and see that. I think it'll be the same as the A6300. Last few questions. When is the next event or opportunity to phone? I think it'll be WWPI. And since it's supposed to be a mini A9, will it have the A9 update? Probably, yes. I think it will have that same focusing that the A9 will have. At the very least, Sony should enable LUT preview on the A7R2 for people shooting S-Log2. Rad says, I'm going to wait for a year or two for the A7 IV. Aaron said, did they fix the A9 trackpad? They did fix. Oh, there you go. So, I just can't wait, Aaron. Honestly, I really can't wait. Hey, David, do you personally use Final Cut? I use Final Cut. I've got a Mac, and it runs far better than what Premiere does. I tried Premiere for a while, but it just doesn't work anywhere near as good as what Final Cut runs. Final Cut on here using 4K footage is like seamless, and that's why I love it so much. If you've got a Windows PC, well, obviously Premiere. Ario said the A9 has touchpad functionality. Oh, that's so good. I'm so happy about that. Camera Ramblings, thanks for the info. Yes, new update is fixing that. Calls it touchpad. Oh, I can't wait. What else have we got? This is just about it. Michael said picture profiles would be nice in the A9, but David, you know I've always said, just like you, the A9 is the best video image. I believe it does too, Michael. I still believe it has the best image that's out there for video. That's for sure. All the best, mate, off to school. Yep, I'm going to go down and get my morning coffee. I'm going to head out now. Oh, man, still going after I want... Oh, man, still going after I want to scoop up the kids. Are you going to get the kids? Okay. All right, guys. That's all for now. See you all in the next video. Oh, by the way, just while you're on here, Friday's live won't be on this week because I've got a wedding Friday. I'm shooting a fusion wedding, so I'll probably do it Saturday morning. Or Saturday, yep. So I will post something on Saturday for you all. So don't look for me live Friday this week. I'll do it Saturday instead. So that's about all, guys. I'll catch you all in the next video. Leave any comments down below what you think about this release. I'd love to know too what you all think about it. And I'll catch you all in the next video. Great talking to you all, guys. Thank you so much. Bye for now.